You see in America now re-engaging with the rest of the world as partners, particularly with Europe, where we share common values. So we look to Europe now and we listen and we engage as partners and we work together on issues rather than the U.S. acting on its own. And I think that's why we see such a terrific response from Europe, for example, to the President's appeal for help with Afghanistan. But beyond that, you see the President obviously engaging with Russia to work together on a New START agreement, which we're optimistic we will see something on that soon. So he's working on nuclear disarmament. He's working on climate change. The President's personal involvement with Copenhagen turned what could have been a total disaster into a modest success. So I think that if you look at the way the U.S. is interacting with the rest of the world, I think the rest of the planet has to say, yes, Obama is delivering on what we expected. Now, do we have everything solved in 1 year? Do we have peace all over the world? No, of course not. But we are making steady progress. We've started withdrawing from Iraq, and that progress is continuing, and we're starting to see a much more, you're starting to see the Iraqis step up and take over their own security, so America, so American troops can go home. In each of these issues, we're making steady, consistent progress. Domestically in the U.S., he's also taking a lot on. And, obviously he doesn't control our Congress. He's not a benevolent dictator. He has to work through the political apparatus that is in place. But he's not shying away from taking on big challenges. Look at healthcare reform. Other presidents have attempted to do this. Now, we don't have it yet. It's not finished yet, but we're very close to achieving truly dramatic healthcare reform in the U.S. But in the U.S., we make progress incrementally. We don't do anything too much. In the case of healthcare reform, he's doing a lot. We're going to ensure millions of people who currently do not have access to healthcare insurance, healthcare coverage. So providing coverage to millions of new people brings a lot of new people into the system, which will frankly reduce costs for everyone as we spread those costs over a bigger base of people. So I think you'd have to say the lion's share of the reform in healthcare is underway. And yes, there will be more to do as we go forward, but it's a big step. There's no doubt about it. On issues like the economy, obviously, that's been the biggest issue on his plate domestically. A year ago, we thought the economy was on the precipice of disaster. Everyone was predicting another Great Depression. And this would have spread throughout the world. Everyone was predicting a global depression. Now, what do we see? We see stability. In the U.S., the housing market has hit bottom. It seems to have stabilized. Employment appears to be starting to stabilize. We actually had positive numbers. The revised numbers for November showed a little bit of reduction in unemployment. So the economy has largely been stabilized. Why? Because we passed a massive Recovery Act, $800 billion package. We threw basically everything at the wall to see what sticks in terms of the banks and getting credit flowing again. And was this necessary? Absolutely. Did we avoid another Great Depression? Absolutely. So millions of people have not lost their jobs who otherwise would have. And that's certainly been the biggest item on his plate. He didn't ask for an economic collapse, obviously, but this is what he was dealt, and he had to address it. So I think you have to look at the year as a success domestically as well. And again, with respect to the rest of the world, the entire globe will benefit from the fact that the American economy has stabilized and is starting to recover again. Well, I don't think in the eyes of the public that the public option was ever the one feature that everyone was looking for. It's a good feature in the sense that if you have it, it helps keep costs competitive. And I believe there's an angle in the bill where they can revisit this and bring up a public option in the future on a state-by-state basis. I'm not familiar with how that will end up, and of course we don't know what the final details will be. But for the most part, the reforms that we need are in this bill. Is it perfect? No. Nothing's ever perfect. And it won't satisfy the right wing and it won't satisfy the left wing, but that's okay because you make progress closer to the center. That's the way American politics works. It's not the president's job to run every piece of legislation through the Hill. It's his job to lay out in general what he would like to see and encourage the legislative process to go forward. We have leadership on the Hill in the Senate that's responsible for getting a bill through the Senate and in the leadership process. Now that they're ironing out the differences, yes, he's playing a role, but he has met with both sides and talked about the reconciliation process, what the final bill should look like. And I think that, the leadership we see is leadership that's behind the scenes. Frankly, I think he's done a remarkable job. If you look at each of the issues that are truly important, we have made measurable progress. When you think about where the economy stood a year ago, it's amazing how easily people forget. But a year ago, we were truly forecasting an economic depression where millions of people would have lost their jobs, where unemployment would have been 15–20% as it was in the Great Depression. And now we see unemployment, it's still bad at 10%, but it has stabilized and job creation is underway, manufacturing is starting to improve, and things are getting better. The auto industry was supposed to be dead. Everybody was going to lose their job. The government took action and helped engineer the recovery of the auto business so that at least these plants are still open and operating. And with a lot of help, they are now producing or looking to produce smaller, more efficient, energy-efficient cars, which will be the cars of the future. So that's a major sector of the economy that was largely rescued. And there are benefits of that spread throughout the economy, obviously, as all the suppliers and all the affiliated businesses didn't lose their jobs. So I think we have to chart the year up as a big success in terms of helping to rescue not only the domestic economy, but the world economy. On the Middle East, again, we've made some progress. The settlements outside Jerusalem have stopped. That's a step forward. And we do have to persuade both parties to get back to the peace table. On Iran, we have tried the dual track approach. We gave Iran the amount of time that we said we would give to bring them back into the world community as a civilized member of the world community and live up to their obligations. So far, they have not. And I think we're all disappointed by that. But now you see talks underway to tighten economic sanctions on Iran because we haven't been able to make progress. But no one can say that we did not try to engage with them. We made every possible effort. We made a very reasonable proposal, which was frankly very favorable to Iran. But they chose not to take us up on it. So, you cannot achieve miracles. If you have a partner who does not want to engage with you, you cannot engage with them. But no one can say we did not make the effort. And now we have to try other means if that's the only alternative available to us. There are still differences of opinion on certain issues, but for the most part, there is tremendous support for Obama in Europe. I think what I have run into in Austria is an example of this. He's tremendously popular. Indeed, I think most Austrians are baffled as to why any American would not be pro-Obama. So perhaps his support is even stronger here than it is at home. And it's pretty good at home. But I think that there's a genuine willingness to listen and to engage and almost an eagerness. I think there was an underlying affection for the United States here in Austria that now people feel free to express again, because they like the direction that the country is headed now, the U.S. is headed now, they like our approach to foreign policy, and so they're much more willing to be expressive about their feelings towards the United States. I think, deep down, people here have always liked Americans. There's a reservoir of goodwill that dates back to the Marshall Plan. And I think now we're seeing that come out again.